Once upon a time, there was an old wise man who used to go down to the beach to do his writing. One early morning, he was walking along the beach, and he looked down the beach, and he saw a young man. And as this young man was walking around, he was bending down and picking things up and throwing them into the ocean. Well, as the old man got closer, he called out to the young man, and he said, "Sir, can I ask what it is you're doing?" At this, the young man responded, "I'm throwing starfish into the ocean. It's early, and the sun is up, and the tide's coming in. If I don't do this now, they'll die." Well, at this, the old man responded, "Son, there are miles and miles of beach here. You do realize you're never going to make a difference to all of them, right?" At that, the young man bent down and he picked up another starfish and he threw it into the ocean. And as it met the water, he said, "Made a difference to that one." This story is painted on the wall of my public high school. And I remember the first time I read this on the first day of my freshman year. I was so moved by this the first time that I read it that it actually moved me to tears. It sounds like a beautiful moment, right? Well, you're wrong. I am a freshman, chubby, white kid crying at the back of the lunch line. Not such a good moment for my ego, but an incredible moment for my spiritual walk. This was a monumental moment for me because it reminded me of when Jesus is teaching the disciples in Matthew. In Matthew chapter 18, verses 12 through 14, he's just finished explaining that those who have a simple, childlike faith, like the young man in the story, will inherit the greatest ranking in the kingdom of God. Let's read it together. It says, "Look at it this way. If someone has 100 sheep and one of them wanders off, doesn't he leave the 99 to go after the one? And if he finds it, doesn't he make far more over it than over the ones who stay put? Your Father in heaven feels the same way. He doesn't want to lose even one of those simple believers." In a Christian culture that likes to overcomplicate the gospel, Jesus has always been one to push a gospel of simplicity. Matthew 18, that's in fact the first thing that I noticed about it, is the childlike chase of Christ. Matthew 18 paints us a picture of a lost sheep. And at this point in the Bible, from context, we know that sheep are people personified. And one fact about sheep is that sheep are prone to wandering. You see, it's in our blood to feel lost without God. We're created to leave the pack. We're just not equipped to live without the shepherd. It's in our nature to feel lost without God. And as a result, you may feel like the starfish in the story today. Maybe you feel washed up to shore. Maybe you feel like you're too far from God. Maybe somebody has preached over your life that you have to qualify to get back to God's grace. Well, let me just remind you, God's grace is like the shepherd's chase. It's going to find you no matter how far you wander. We serve the God that's going to leave the 99 just to come after the one. Which brings me to my second point. You are the one. Matthew 18 is a wake-up call. Jesus is calling us into a childlike chase of the ones that got away. But sometimes as the church, we look a lot like the 99 sheep in the parable. We stay put. We look like the wise old man in the story about the starfish. We call out, "Oh, you're never going to make a difference." Sometimes our mind is the enemy of our mission. We have Christians more concerned with where they're sitting in church than who they're giving their seat up for. We have people carrying the cross but forgetting about the cause. We can't be defined by the 99. We have to be compelled by the one. Don't be so consumed by logic that you forget about the lost. We cannot forget that before we were the church, we were the one. And your experience of Christ has to dictate your expression of Christ. Logic might be calling out, "Oh, you'll never make a difference," but I promise you, Jesus is calling out, "I made a difference to that one." We cannot let the fact that God loves us whatsoever push us into forgetting about the whosoevers. This faith has always been about the back alleys and the street corners and the clubs and the bars and the prisons where people have no hope without Jesus and the graveyards where people are mourning. This faith is about the one. It's a whosoever faith, and that's not going to change whatsoever. We cannot forget that before we were the 99, we were the one. Remember, the strength of the one is the church, but the strength of the church is the one. Thank you.